Vishnupadaya
Krishna Bhutale
Krishna Bhutale
Srimate Bhakti Vedanta
Srimate Bhakti Vedanta
Swamin iti namine
Swamin iti namine
Namaste Saraswate Deve
Namaste Saraswate Deve
Gauravani Pracharine
Gauravani Pracharine
Nirvishesha Shunyavadi
Nirvishesha Sunyavadi
Paschatya Deshatarine
Paschatya Deshatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadara
Shri Advaita Gadadara
Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda
Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama
Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
So today we'll be covering few verses from 6.5 to 6.9 which explain about the nature of mind. So for a yogi, why it is important if he wants to advance in yoga perspective to control his mind. So we'll recite these verses. Uddaret atmanatmanam
Uddaret atmanatmanam
natmanam avasadayet
Natmanam avasadayet
Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur
Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur
Atmaiva rituratmanaha
Atmaiva ripuratmanaha
Uddaret atmanatmanam
Uddaret atmanatmanam
Natmanam avasadayet
Natmanam avasadayet
Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur
Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur
Atmaiva ripuratmanaha.
Atmaiva ripuratmanaha.
So here Krishna is saying Uddaret atmanatmanam. Uddaret means one should elevate. So one should elevate himself. Atmanam, atmana by atmanam. One should elevate himself by his mind. Na atmanam avasadayet. One should not degrade himself. Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul. Atma eva ripuratmanaha, and his enemy as well. So a man must elevate himself by his own mind. Uddaret atmana atmanam, and not degrade himself. Na atmanam avasadayet. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul. Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur, and his enemy as well. Atmaiva ripuratmanaha. This is the nature of mind. It can be either friend or it can be his enemy. So one must elevate himself by his own mind, and one should not degrade himself because of this nature of because of this mind. So here, what is the definition of the word Atma? Because everywhere it is, whether it is he, whether it is body, whether it is soul, whether it is mind, how one can differentiate the various meanings of Atma? In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya says, Atma has 7 meanings. Body, mind, soul, intelligence, consciousness, endeavor, super soul, like that 7 meanings he has given. So how do we know whether it is referring to body, whether it is mind, whether it is soul, whether it is intelligence? Depending upon the circumstances. That's how the definition of Atma is said. So what is the purpose of this yoga system? The whole endeavor of this yoga indriya samyama. So to regulate the senses, and the master of the senses is the mind. So the purpose of yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects, because senses are naturally prone to get attracted towards sense objects. So the master of the senses is mind. So by regulating the mind and taking it away from attachment to sense objects is the purpose of this yoga system. So how is the pure soul entangled in this material world? Because of the mind's ego, which desires to lord it over the material nature. So whatever we see, we would like to possess it. That is the nature of this material world. So once that is based on that ego. So it is the one which causes our bondage in this material world, entanglement. So how can one be saved? How can one save this conditioned soul who is entangled in this world? So the solution is mind should be trained that it will not be attracted by the glitter of this material nature. So this material, the example is given like when you are in a desert, from far we see it is like water. The reflection of sunlight on the sand will feel like it is like water. But when we go there, it is actually not water, it is just sand. So similarly, this glitter is artificial of this material world. It is not original glitter. So one should not be carried away by this glitter. So then if mind is trained in this purpose, then one will not get attracted by this glitter. So similarly, so what is the best way to disentangle? The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material nature. So the best way is engage the mind in Krishna consciousness, which becomes the cause of supreme liberation. So using the mind, which is going to entrap us, one should train the mind in Krishna consciousness so that we become liberated through the mind itself. So how, when, where is further explained in the next verses, how using the mind one can become liberated. Quoting from Amruta Bindu Upanishad, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshaya. So mana eva manushyanam, among people, the mind is the karanam, the cause, bandha mokshaya, either to bondage or to liberation. Bandhaya vishaya sango muktyaye nirvishayam manaha. So how it binds? Bandhaya vishaya sango, by attachment to the sense objects. When mind is absorbed in sense objects, it causes bondage. Vishaya sango bandhaya. Mukyai nirvishayam manaha. When mind is detached from, nirvishayam means from the sense objects, mukyai, the mind is the cause of liberation. So the same verse is available in Upanishads also. So Prabhupada explains in one letter, our thoughts are always changing. That is the nature of the mind. So you cannot expect that even the great saintly persons are free from thoughts coming and going. But after thinking, there is feeling. But after thinking, there is feeling and willing. Willing being the stage of putting the thoughts into action. So if you are able to employ our intelligence, then we can kill the thoughts before they become manifest in activity. But because we are not much inclined to enjoying something intelligently, we have to sharpen our intelligence by reading and discussing and preaching to others. In this way, we are able to very easily to defeat all challengers to our philosophy, and everything becomes very clear as it is revealed from different angles of vision. So thinking, feeling, willing. So thinking is in the mind level, feeling is next at the intelligence level, acting is at the body level. So when you feel, when you think, then it becomes more you think, you start feeling for it. The more you feel, the more you want to work for it. That is how the nature of this tendency of this body. So if there is anything to be done, if you want to change the process, at the thinking level itself, you have to stop. So we have to use our intelligence, discrimination, so whether it is correct or not, so that we'll be able to proceed further or not. So for a devotee, what is the nature? All of you can open Bhagavad Gita 2.70. Have you opened? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Please read the translation, please.
Translation, Prabhu. A person who is not disturbed by the intense flow of desires that enter like rivers into the rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires.
So these desires are like thoughts which enter into our mind. So what is the flow of these thoughts? Like rivers continuously enter into the ocean. So that is the nature of these thoughts which continuously bombard us. So intelligent person is the one, a devotee is the one who is able to handle these desires without becoming carried away by those desires. So by the nature of the mind, if it is trained, it will not get activated. Even though something comes in its mind, something comes in the mind, it is not ready to process it. So that is how the training is. So generally, in our body, there are 5 senses. So each has a unique feeling. So in Shastras, it is said, different things are cause of bondage for living entity. For a fish, its sense of tasting. So even though it is not hungry, just because it wants to taste, it becomes hooked up into the net. For an elephant, the sense of genital, sexual urge. So it will end, a male elephant is trapped by a female elephant. For a deer, it is very much interested in hearing music. So if some hunter wants to catch a deer, he'll be playing a flute. So the deer becomes entrapped and it will become motionless. At that time, they will try to capture it. But for a human being, all his 5 senses are problem. See, for other living entities, any one sense will be the problem. But for human being, everything is a problem. All his senses are a problem. So the eyes want to see something very beautiful, it will get carried away. Ears want to hear something very nice, pleasant, it will get carried away. The taste, tongue want to taste everything that is visible. The nose want to smell every perfume, like nice smells. The touch, it wants to touch soft feelings. In that way, all his senses are trying to divert him in 5 different directions. So that's why man is more complicated, more in a difficult situation than other animals. So other animals, only one sense is problem, but for man, all 5 senses are problem. So and the master of all the 5 senses is mind. So one has to be very careful. So every chance is there, every opportunity is there to get him pulled in all directions. So one has to first control the mind before he wants to individually control the senses. That is the answer given to us. So Bhagavatam also certain verses which explain about this nature of mind. Tavanayam vyavaharaha sadhavihi kshetrajño saksho bhavati stula sukshmaha tasman manolingam ado vadanti guna agunatvasya paravarasya. The mind makes the living entity within this material world wander through different species of life. And thus the living entity experiences mundane affairs in different forms, as a human being, demigod, fat person, skinny person, stula, sukshma, different things it will take through. Yavaharaha, different things in the cross, he goes there. So Vadanti, learned scholars, they say that bodily appearance, tasman manolingam, guna agunatvasya paravarasya. Either it can cause bondage or liberation or caused by its mind. So similarly, in one more place, na kuryat karhichit sakyam manasihi anavastite yad vishramba chirat chirnam chaskanda tapa aishwaram. So all learned scholars have given their opinion in this perspective. The mind is by nature very restless. That we will come across in Bhagavad Gita further also. So one should not make friends with it. So, sakyam na kuryat karhichit, at any time one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Shobhani Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection. So, mind one should not rely at any time. Cha askanda tapa ishwaram. So, tapa ishwaram, that opulence of tapa is lost because one has focused upon his mind. Okay, all of you can repeat this verse. Again, this nature of this mind is again further explained. Bandhur atmanatmanas tasya.
Bandhur
atmanam tasya
Yenatmaiva atmana jitaha.
yenatmaiva atmana jitaha
Anatmanastu shatrutve.
anatmanastu satrutve
Varteta atmaiva shatruvat.
वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवात्
Bandhur Atma Atmanastasya
बन्धुरात्मनस्तस्य
Ena Atmeva Atmana Jitaha
येन आत्मैत्मनः जितः
जितः
Atmanastu Shatrutve
अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे
Varteta Atmaiva Shatruvat.
वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवात्
So, Ena Atma Eva Atmana Jitaha means for one who has conquered the mind, Bandhur Atma Atmanastasya, the mind is the best of the friends. But Anatmanastu Shatrutve, for one who has failed to do so, Shatrutve, his mind will be the Varteta Atmaiva Shatruvat, he is the greatest enemy. So, for him who has conquered the mind, Yena Atmeva Atmana Jitaha, one who has conquered the mind is the best of the friends. Bandhur Atma Atmanastasya. Bandhu, he is a friend. But for one who has failed to do so, Anatmanastu Shatrutve, his very mind will be the greatest enemy. Varteta Atmaiva Shatruva. So, what is the purpose of this practicing eightfold yoga, Ashta Anga Yoga? The purpose is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. If you leave it, it will become our greatest enemy. So the best way is by using this Ashtanga Yoga system is to control the mind. So unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga is simply a waste of time. If you are not reached the point of controlling the mind, the endeavor, Shramayavahi Kevalam, it's a waste of time. So what is the status of one who could not control his mind? So it says he lives with the greatest enemy, mind. His life and his mission are all spoiled because of this mind. So as long as one's mind is unconquered, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, and so on. So he is bound by these 6 things which will degrade the one's personality. So what does real yoga process entail? Meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. So one comes to the platform of regulating the mind, then it is almost like he will be able to reach the Paramatma feature within the heart. He'll be able to meditate on the Paramatma. Then once you are under the guidance of Paramatma, just follow his dictation. So for one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically. So separately he need not follow to control the mind automatically, because once you come to the platform of chanting, you'll automatically be able to control the mind and you'll be able to practice instructions from the day one itself. So Prabhupada explains in one lecture. So we have to make good association if you want to make our mind a friend. If you want to make our mind a friend, then you have to associate with a sadhu. Tasmat sassu sajjeta buddhiman. Buddhiman means an intelligent person. You must associate with a satsu. Satsu means those who are trying for self-realization. They are called as sat. So there are 2 things, sat and asat. Asat means those who are trying for the temporary things. And what is the result of good association? If you make good association, santah chindanti. Santah means the persons who are sadhus, who are very pious. They can cut off by their words our attachment for this material world. So Krishna is presenting his Bhagavad Gita just to cut off. Santa eva hi chindanti uktivihi, by his uktivihi means by his teachings. Chindanti means to cut. For cutting something, we require a sharpened instrument. So here, to cut off the mind from attachment requires sharpened uktihi. Uktihi means words. Just as when a person cuts something, there is no mercy. Similarly, when a sadhu or a saintly person speaks to his student, he does not show any mercy. He speaks the truth so that his mind may be cut off from unreal attachment. So one more place Prabhupada explains. Mind is the driver. The body is the chariot or car. So just like if you ask your driver, please get me into Krishna conscious temple. The driver will bring you here. And if you ask your driver, please get me into that liquor house, driver will drive you there. The driver's business is to drive you wherever you like. Similarly, your mind is a driver. If you lose control, then wherever he likes, he will take you. then you are gone. Then your driver is your enemy. But if your driver acts on your order, then he is your friend. A simple example, the body, 5 senses are like 5 horses. The mind is the reins which controls the 5 horses. Intelligence is the driver, and the passenger is the spirit soul. The body is the chariot. So that is being mentioned in this diagram. So based on verse from Bhagavatam, Gunanu Uraktam Vyasanaya Jantuho Kshemaya Nairgunyam Ato Manasyat Yata Pradipo Grutavartim Asnam Shika Saduma Bhajatihi Anyada Swam Padam Tata Guna Karmanu Baddam Vrittir Manashriyate Anyatra Tattvam. So when the living entity's mind becomes absorbed in the sense gratification of the material world, it brings about his conditioned life and sufferings within this material situation. However, when the mind becomes unattached to material attachment, it becomes the cause of liberation. When the flame in a lamp burns a wick improperly, the lamp is blackened. But when the lamp is filled with ghee and it is burning properly, there is bright illumination. Yata pradipo gratavartim asnan. Similarly, when the mind is absorbed in material sense gratification, it causes suffering. And when detached from material sense gratification, it brings about the original brightness of Krishna consciousness. So the same shloka which is explained in Bhagavatam. So any doubts till now? Okay, let us proceed further. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, like as you say that we have to be cut off our mind from the sense objects or the objects which is pleasing to our senses.
Okay.
So in that course, like even we do it detached through our process, we detached from our material relationships and social relations and everything. Then when we come to this stage that we have no interest on those things, but what happens is that we expect that we expect that thing from the Krishna consciousness activities, which we have we were used to enjoy with the material relationships or enjoying our senses. If we don't get that in Krishna consciousness, then for example, we feel loneliness, that we have left our social circle, friends, relatives, and those words where we were with them, even though it was pleasing or it was painful, but we were busy with that. But here what happened that we are no more interested in those relationships because those are material and no more pleasing. So now the same thing we are expecting from Krishna consciousness activities. So how to fill that gap, or how to enjoy the same loneliness should not be bother us on Krishna consciousness.
So here it is said Krishna consciousness is practiced in the association of devotees. Satsu Sajjeta Buddhiman. The intelligent person would like to associate with the devotees, and in their association, he would like to progress further by hearing to their instructions and by taking their guidance. So if somebody is not able to make friendship with other devotees, so there is some problem with that person, or he is maybe an introvert who is not able to connect with other people. So he has to come out of his shelf. Then he has to start interacting with devotees, make relationship with them, and get guidance properly, and take the association to the fullest opportunity, and then it can replace. Sometimes you are placed in a situation where you will be only one devotee. There is no opportunity for association there. But you have Prabhupada by his books, by his Vani. So that is the association. What else we can do? Understood?
Yes, Prabhu.
In the
Understood.
Devotees, they were sent to foreign places.
Yeah.
And they were not much trained, and they were not much having association of other devotees. They just joined in 6 months to 1 year. They were all sent to new locations. So they were feeling very lonely, and they used to write to Prabhupada. Prabhupada used to say, I am there always with you. Through my books, I am there. Through my lectures, I am there. So when you hear with that, that association, you'll naturally get that association from Prabhupada and through books and through his Vani and through his Vigraha. So that is how sometimes we may have to survive.
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. So let us recite this verse. Jitatmana prashantasya
Jitatmanah
Prasantasya
Paramatma samahitaha
Paramatma Samahitaha
Samahitaha
Sitoshna sukhadukkeshu
Shitoshna Sukadukeshu
Tata manapamanayoho
Tha Manapamanayo
Jitatmana prashantasya
Jitatmanah Prashantasya
Paramatma samahitaha
Paramatma Samahitaha
Shitoshna sukhadukkeshu
Sitoshena Sukadukeshu
Tata manapamanayoho.
Tha Manapamanayo.
So Jita Atmanah Prashantasya, for one who has conquered his mind, he is Paramatma Samahitaha. He is already reached Paramatma. And Prashantasya, he is attained tranquility. Sita Ushna Sukha Dukkeshu. Sita Ushna, cold, hot. Shuka, Dukkha, happiness and distress. Tata Mana Apamanayo, honor and dishonor, they are all same to him. So for one who has conquered the mind, Jitatmanaha, the super soul is already reached. Paramatma Samahitaha. For he has attained tranquility, Prashantasya. To such a man, happiness and distress, Shuka, Dukkha, heat and cold, Sita, Ushna, honor and dishonor, Mana, Apamanayo are all the same. So when does one become entangled in these material activities? Is when the mind is misled by the external illusory energy. Maya will drive him in a wrong direction. So what is the intended goal every jiva has to understand? Is one has to abide by the superior dictation, that is super soul. He is represented as spiritual master in the material world as spiritual master guru. So when one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no other alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. So how does a Krishna conscious devotee is unaffected by the dualities of material existences? The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of super soul. And the transcendental position of samadhi is at once reached by a Krishna conscious devotee because he becomes unaffected by the duality. So because this world is the place of duality, that you may like one item, the next moment you may dislike it. People may praise you, next moment they may criticize us. So this situation, like today it will be very hot, tomorrow it will be very cold. So the nature of this world is duality. So we should not be carried away by this duality. So similar principle, Krishna says, we have to tolerate this principle if we have to become liberated from this world. Please open 14th shloka, 2nd chapter. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shetoshna sukhadukkadaha.
Yes, Prabhu.
Read the translation, please.
Translation. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O Sion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
So if you want to become a dhira in this world, one should learn to tolerate this duality. Happiness, distress, heat, cold, they are by default there. Like seasonal changes, they keep coming and going. So one has to tolerate if he has to become a dhira. Okay, somebody can read the next verse, 15th verse. What happens if you tolerate?
O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation.
So what is that word? Amrutam it is said in the Sanskrit. Sloka, Sanskrit sloka.
Yamhina, Prabhu.
Yamhina vyatiyante te purusham purushasrava samadukkam sukham dhiram. So amrutatvaya kalpate.
So
Amrita means,
Amritatvaya.
so one who becomes eligible for liberation. So if you are able to tolerate these dualities, one becomes naturally eligible for going back home, back to God. So how to come to that stage is by either following Krishna consciousness or by practicing yoga system. That is the same thing. It is mentioned here. By samadhi is one comes to the platform of complete absorption unto the Supreme, unto the Paramatma. So he becomes unaffected by the dualities. Or when you practice Krishna consciousness as devotee in Bhakti Yoga, you naturally come to this platform of not getting carried away by these dualities. Either way, you will come to that same stage. The same aspect is again glorified in Bhagavatam. Yoga adhyatmika pumsam mato nishteyasaya me atyanto parater yatra dukkasya sa sukasya cha. Lord answered, this is by Lord Kapila. The yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity. Nishteyasaya me pumsam mataha. And which causes detachment, atyanta uparatihi, from all happiness and distress. Yatra dukkasya cha sukasya cha, in this material world, is the highest yoga system. Yoga adhyatmikaha. According to my opinion, this is what Lord is saying. Pumsam mato nishteyasaya me. So further also he says in the same perspective. So api etaya charamaya manaso nivritya tasmin mahimni avashitaha shukadukka bhakye. The shloka is further continued. Thus situated in the highest transcendental stage, the mind ceases from all material reaction and becomes situated in its own glory, transcendental to all material conceptions of shukadukka bhakye, happiness and distress. At that time, the yogi realizes the truth of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. As Paramatma, he is able to realize his relationship. He discovers that pleasure and pain as well as their interactions, so happiness and distress as well as their interactions, which he attributed to his own self, are actually due to the false ego, which is a product of ignorance. So whatever he is feeling, whether it is giving pleasure or pain, is because of his bodily concept of life or because of his false ego. So when he is able to rise above the situation, then he is able to feel all these things are not bother to him. He was thinking he is actually the cause, but actually they are not the cause for him, and he is not to be carried away by that interactions. So there were two friends who had met after a long time, and they wanted to go for a village fair. And these two people, they planned themselves, and that day evening they had left. So when they went to the village fair, there were many activities being happening. And one place, there was an assembly of people who are trying to listen to that Bhagavata Katha is happening there. So one devotee who is, one person in that is little devoted. So as soon as he heard Bhagavata Katha, he was asking his other friend, please come and sit with me. Let us hear this Bhagavat Pravachan is going on. The other friend, he is a lusty person. So he is little more inclined towards enjoyment. He said, no, what is the use of sitting here? I would like to go to some place where I would like to get some association of some movement. And he was thinking of some place where he could enjoy his sense gratification. The friend who was very little devoted, he came and sat in this Bhagavata Pravachan. And the other person, he left him there and he went away in search of his association for some movement and all this. After a couple of hours or something, this person who is sitting there in this association, so who was hearing to that Bhagavata, he became a little carried away and he started thinking, so I'm sitting in this Bhagavata class and nothing is happening. I'm not able to understand the head or tail. My friend would have been enjoying with nice girls and nice enjoyment. He would have been going through like that. He was thinking. And the other friend who went to a prostitute and who was trying to enjoy there, at that time, by seeing all their nature and all these things, he became vexed up there. And he was thinking, why did I come here? I could have sat there in that Bhagavata Pravachan and I could have made my mind peaceful. I came here, which is a source of all misery and which will be which will further entangle me in this world, like that and all he was thinking at that particular point. So at that same point, both of them passed away. Accidentally or intentionally, both of them passed away. The person who was thinking in the prostitute place that it is better they could have gone to Bhagavad Gita, he was elevated to a higher position. And the person who was sitting in Bhagavad Gita and who was thinking of, let me go to a prostitute, I have wasted my time sitting in near the Bhagavad Gita, he was taken to Yamaraja's. So you have to be very careful. The place where I am sitting, but the consciousness what I am carrying is also very important. So this is also one more story. Further, like similar stories there in other Puranas and other places also. So there was one prostitute who used to sit in the outside of the house waiting for people. Opposite house there was one Brahmana who was a learned scholar and who used to every day sit outside his house and he used to recite the verses of Bhagavad Gita. So in the evening every day he used to sit outside and he used to nicely recite the verses, and this lady is also used to decorate herself and wait outside for any customers would come or what. So when he is reciting, he used to see at that prostitute and he used to think such a nasty life she is going through, such a very bad opportunity for her, like that and all. He used to think of her while reciting Bhagavad Gita. And that lady, because of frustration that not able to get anything and all, she used to at least focus on that Bhagavad Gita. And she used to become more and more devoted to the Lord, more and more attached to the Lord over a period of time. She became more and more attached, and this Brahmana this person is learned scholar, used to always criticize her because of her job and her profession, all these things. So accidentally, or sometime after some time, this old man, when he was about to die, Yamadutas enter into his house to take him to Yamaraja's place. So the Brahmana becomes alerted and he says, I think, sorry, sir, you have come to a wrong place. You have to go to the opposite house. That lady who is there, she's a prostitute. I'm a scholar, I'm a Brahmana, I read Bhagavad Gita every day, all these things and that. But when the Yamadutas, when they explain to him that actually you are reading Bhagavad Gita, but your always mind is thinking about that prostitute and her bad qualities, all these things and all. So you have become fallen from your position and you are eligible for going back to hell. And that lady, because she was constantly sitting there and hearing Bhagavad Gita and she is memorizing the verses and trying to connect to the Lord and feeling relationship with the Lord, she became elevated and she will be going back home, back to God. So one has to be very careful. Even though I'm doing a process which is authorized, whether my mind is there in that process or not. So that is a story connected with subject. Okay, next. All of you can recite this verse. Jitatmana prashantasya. I think the same sloka. Sloka is wrongly quoted here. Okay.
It's over.
This verse number is wrong here. Okay. I'll recite the verse. We can read from your books. Jnana Vijnana Truptatma.
Jnana Vijnana
Truptatma.
Kutasto Vijitendriyaha.
Kutasto Vijitendriyaha.
Yukta iti uchyate yogi.
Yukta iti uchyate yogi.
Samalostasma kanchanaha.
Samalostra kanchanaha.
Jnana Vijnana Truptatma.
Jnana Vijnana
Truptatma.
Kutasto Vijitendriyaha.
Kutasto Vijitendriyaha.
Yukta iti uchyate yogi.
Yukta iti uchyate yogi.
Samalostasma kanchanaha.
Samalostra kanchanaha.
The person is said to be established in self-realization. Jnana Vijnana Truptatma is called a yogi. Yukta iti uchyate yogi. When he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge, jnana, and realization, that is Vijnana. Jnana Vijnana Truptatma is Yukta iti uchyate yogi. He is called as yogi. And such a person is situated in transcendence, Kutastaha, and is self-controlled, Vijitendriyaha. He sees everything, whether it is pebbles, Samaloshrasma Kanchana, pebbles, stone or gold, as same, because everything is made of here. So it is mentioned, who can become Krishna conscious? So one cannot become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship. So just because we have education, we can become Krishna conscious is not the solution. Fortunate enough to associate with the devotee who is in pure Krishna consciousness. Like I am a candle. If I have to be lighted, one more candle who is having that light can light me. I cannot individually light myself. So that is a one gloss example what we say. So how does a Krishna conscious person remain satisfied and self-controlled? Because of realized knowledge. It is not theoretical, it is practical knowledge. Jnana, Vijnana. And by realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. By the grace of Krishna, he is satisfied with pure devotion service because everything is there available at his opportunity, but he is not carried away because Krishna gives him what is required for him for his advancement. As realized soul is actually self-controlled because he is surrendered to Krishna. So what is the difference between transcendental knowledge and academic knowledge? By transcendental knowledge, one can remain steady in his convictions, but by academic knowledge, one can be easily be deluded and confused by apparent contradictions. So what is his perception of mundane scholarship? Mundane scholarship and mental speculation are like gold to others, but are of no value than stone or pebbles for devotees. So quoting from Padma Purana, there is a verse which says, Atah Shri Krishna Namadi Nabaved Grahyam Indriyaihi Sevan Mukohi Jihvado Swayamevahi Spuratyada. So no one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, Nama, form, Rupa, quality, Guna, pastimes, Leela of Shri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Grahyam Indriyaihi. Only one becomes spiritually saturated, Sevan Mukehi Jihvado, by service to the Lord, or the transcendental name, Swayambhu Spuratyadaha, name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Lord are naturally revealed to him. So in one lecture, Krishna Prabhupada says, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. One should not have only theoretical knowledge, but practical knowledge as well. Simply understanding that I am not this body and doing all the nonsense of this body is a mistake. One should have perfect knowledge and demonstrate it in practical ways. But that means one who has actually felt himself that I am not this body, then naturally his bodily necessities will be reduced to the minimum. There should be practical realization, and this is called as Prashant Atma. The mind is calm and quiet and no longer agitated by the attractions of this material encirclement. So similarly, there is a quotation from Bhagavatam. Jnana Vijnana Samyukta Atma Bhuta Sharirinam Atmanubhava Tushtatma Na Antarayer Vihanyashe. Being fully endowed with conclusive knowledge of the Vedas and having realized the ultimate purpose of such knowledge in practice, you will be able to perceive the pure self and become self-satisfied. In this way, you will become dear to all living beings headed by the demigods, and you will never be obstructed by any impediment. So this is a quote from Uddhava Gita, where Lord Krishna is speaking to Uddhava. So when you become with theoretical and practical knowledge, one becomes pure and becomes self-satisfied. Tushta Atma, Atmanubhava. So this is very important thing. Practice practical life. Simply quoting verses like parrot will not be very much beneficial. One must apply Jnana Vijnana Sahitam. Jnana means to know the thing, and Vijnana means to apply the things in practical life. So Jnana Vijnana Sahitam means we must know the Vijnana, how practically one has to engage the subject. So that is what is explained here. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita and in Nectar of Devotion, there is a story about this Brahmana who was offering sweet rice to the Lord. We come across this story. So there was a Brahmana from an area called Pratishtanapura, which is almost like Rajamandri in South India on the river bank of Ganges. So he was not a great rich person, but he was very satisfied person. So he was thinking of, because of his past misdeeds, that he was not able to serve the Lord to his fullest extent, and he had no sufficient money and opulence that he could satisfy the or worship the Lord to his fullest capacity. But because he was not sorry to whatever position, he used to live very peaceful. He's very open-hearted. Sometimes he used to hear the lecture delivered by some Vaishnava souls, Acharyas. So at one particular meeting, when he was faithfully hearing about the Vaishnava activities, he was informed that one can serve the Lord even in meditation. In other words, he may not practically have the opulences, all these things at all, but in his mind, he will be able to serve the Lord with all the things what he wants to serve the Lord with. Because his Brahmana was not much well-to-do financially, he decided this is the best way how I can serve the Lord, meditate on grand, royal, devotional activities. And in that way, he used to every day bathe in river Godavari. And after bathing, he used to come and sit in a secluded place. And by practicing this pranayama system, he would concentrate his mind. And finally, he is able to fix on the Paramatma future. And every day in the meditation, he used to bring in golden pots water from all sacred rivers. He used to do abhishekam for the Lord. He used to dress the Lord in nice, costly garments and put very beautiful ornaments, helmets, and other paraphernalia. Then he used to offer obeisances, and after finishing dressing, he used to think himself that he is cleansing the temple very nicely. Then he imagined, then he used to bring correct various ingredients, and he used to offer various Naivedya to the Lord, in that everything in the very fruits, flowers, incense, sandalwood pulp, everything he used to place in front of the deity, and he used to offer to the fullest extent. So there was no conjugacy in his preparation. So one day he wanted to offer to the Lord kheer, sweet rice. And he had, after boiling it, he had kept it some time for cooling. So when he went there, he wanted to see, because sweet rice has to be offered cold, then only that sweet will become more. In hot condition, the sweet rice will not taste nicely. So he had put his finger to see whether the sweet rice has become cold or not. But because of the sweet rice is still hot, when he had kept his finger into the pot, his finger got burnt. So immediately his meditation broke, and when he saw it, his finger was actually burnt. So he was wondering in astonishment, because he was only thinking of the offering of the sweet rice in the mind, but his finger physically was actually burnt. So while he was thinking like that, Lord Narayana was sitting with Lakshmi in Vaikuntha, and he was laughing humorously. On seeing the smiling of the Lord, Lakshmi Devi asked him very curiously why he was smiling. The Lord did not reply her inquisitiveness, but instead immediately sent an airplane to receive the Brahmana to be brought back immediately to his presence. So when the Brahmana was brought in front of the Lord and Lakshmi Devi, the Lord explained the whole story. The Brahmana was then fortunate enough to get an eternal place in Vaikuntha in the association of the Lord and his consort Lakshmi Devi. So just by offering in the mind also is sufficient for us that we become perfected and we can go back home, back to Godhead, and one can achieve that perfection simply by the grace of the Lord. So this is the story of a Brahmana. So similarly, there is one teacher who was teaching his students. The students want some interesting puzzle by which they will be able to think very nicely. So the teacher gave them one sleeve, and they said, go and fill it up with water. So they all went to a nearby place, and nearby place where there is a water pond. So they are trying to say, like, sleeve means it is like jallidi. In Telugu, it is like where it is filled with holes and all. So if you try to fill the water, water will come down. So there is never opportunity that people will be able to carry water in that. So after some time, after 1 hour or something, also the disciples have not come back. So the teacher had gone there. There he saw all the disciples are sitting on the shore, and they are very sorrow. So when they saw the teacher, they immediately got up and offered respects, and they said, "My dear sir, you have given us a tough puzzle. We are not able to crack it because this sleeve can never hold water." So then the teacher laughed, and he said, "I said that the sleeve should hold water. Whether you to bring that sleeve or not is not what I had asked." So he took the sleeve from the student's hand and he threw it in the water. As soon as the water started filling into the sleeve was filled with water, and it went down into the water. Now you can say, that master said, now you can say that sleeve is filled with water. The thing is, you have to think something beyond the place. It is something thinking beyond the box, out of the box solution. So in the association of devotees, in the practice of Krishna consciousness, one will get that common sense knowledge by which one can be able to think beyond what they are supposed to in getting things executed for the service of the Lord, for the mission of the Lord. So that is the story there. Okay, today's last verse. Again, all of you can repeat. Suhurun mitrari udasina.
Suhrun mittari udasina.
Madhyastya deshva bandhushu.
Madhyastya deshva bandhushu.
Sadhushu apicha papeshu.
Sadhushu apicha papeshu.
Samabuddhir vishishyate.
Samabuddhir vishishyate.
Suhrun mitrari udasina.
Suhrun mitrari udasina.
Madhyastha deshya bandhushu.
Madhyastya deshya bandhushu.
Sadhushu apicha papeshu.
Sadhushu apicha papeshu.
Samabuddhir vishishyate.
Samabuddhir vishishyate.
So in Bhagavad Gita, in the 5th chapter, we had seen a situation. Learned man is equivalent to all categories of people. So similarly, by practice of yoga, one comes to a situation where all these 10 varieties of people, he will be dealing in a same mentality. So who are these 10 varieties of people? Suhrun, those who are well-wishers. Mitra, those who are friends. Ari, those who are enemies. Then Udasinaha, those who are neutral. Madhyastaha, those who are mediator. Dvesha, those who are envious. Bandhushu, those who are relatives. Sadhushu, those who are pious. Apicha papeshu, those who are sinful people. Samabuddhir vishishyate. He will be able to see in an equal mind. A person is to be still further advanced when he regards all the honest well-wisher, the friends and enemies, the envious, the pious, the sinner, and those who are indifferent and impartial with an equal mind. So Prabhupada explains about this verse. We have relationships within this world. Somebody is very good well-wisher, somebody is my friend, and somebody is neither friend nor enemy, and somebody madhyastaha, mediator, and somebody actually doing some good. When you are in yoga yuktaha, when you are in the platform of transcendence, these distinctions, this friend, enemy, sadhu, saintly, sinful, will all disappear. No more. We are just acting, disguised as father, mother, wife, children, friend, enemy. In a drama, each plays a part, but off stage, we are all friends. On stage, I may say, you are my enemy, I shall kill you, and so on. But when off stage, we are all friends. Similarly, in this material world, with this dress of the material body, we are playing on the stage of the material world as enemies, friends, father, mother, son. I cannot beget any son. It is not possible. I simply beget this body. So this is been explained here. So there was one young man who had come to a sadhu, and he started explaining to him that he is very sad and asked for a solution. The sadhu instructed him, that unhappy young man, to put a handful of salt in a glass of water and drink. So that boy drank that water, and the master asked him, how is it taste? So after drinking little, that boy spit out everything, that saying that it is very terrible. Then the old sadhu was laughing, and then he asked the young boy to take another handful of salt. And they went to a nearby lake. So the both of them were walking while they were going to the lake, and it was silence. They did not talk anything. So immediately the boy threw his handful of salt into the lake. The old man asked, now drink the water from the lake. As the water dropped from the young man's chin, the master asked, how does it taste? The boy said it was good. The master asked, do you taste the salt? The boy said, no. The master, he started looking at that troubled young man, and he was holding his hands, and he said, the pain of life is like pure salt, no more, no less. The amount of pain in life remains the same, exactly the same. But the amount we taste the pain depends upon the container we put into. So when you are in pain, the only thing you can do is to enlarge your sense of things. Stop being a glass and become a lake. So that you do not feel carried away by the situations, and you become, you overcome the situations in a different perspective. This is what is explained here. Stop being a glass. That's from the sadhu's experience. So, any questions? From the next week, we'll see how practically the process of Ashtanga Yoga is, and how one has to be, the process, how one has to lead to achieve perfection in that process. So, thank you all of you for attending the session, and hope all of you got the benefit of understanding this Bhagavad Gita verses in a practical way, how Prabhupada has given us through his lectures also, so that it's easy for us to relate to. So what you have to do is, after increasing your understanding, you have to do it into practical, jnana vijnana. Then it becomes more effective for us in advance. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.